Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that will pull at your heart, test your patience, and then completely restore your faith in humanity. Because what happened to this little girl after her father's funeral should never happen to any child. But what happened next changed her life forever. The rain had been falling non-stop that morning, the kind of cold, heavy rain that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel heavier than it already is. A small funeral stood quietly at the edge of the cemetery. There were no long lines of mourners, no luxury cars, no big speeches. Just a simple wooden coffin, a pastor with a trembling voice, and a little girl standing alone, holding a black umbrella that was far too big for her tiny hands. Her name was Emily, and she was only 9 years old. She wore a black dress that had once belonged to her mother, altered as best as her father could manage. Her shoes were worn, her hair neatly braided, because her father had always told her that, even in sadness, dignity mattered. Now, the man who had said those words lay beneath the ground, and Emily felt like the world had ended. Her father, Daniel, had been everything to her. After her mother passed away years ago, he became her protector, her teacher, her best friend. He worked long hours at a warehouse, came home exhausted, but never failed to help her with homework. Never missed a school play, never forgot to tuck her in at night. But 2 years before his death, Daniel remarried. At first, Emily tried to be hopeful. She wanted to believe that having a stepmother meant having someone else to care for her. But from the very beginning, something felt wrong. Her stepmother, Linda, was polite in front of others, but cold behind closed doors. Smiles disappeared the moment no one was watching. Kind words turned into sharp comments. Affection was replaced with impatience. Daniel noticed some of it, but not all. He was sick by then. A quiet illness he didn't talk much about. And every time Emily tried to say something, he would gently say, "Just give her time, sweetheart. She's adjusting to." Now Daniel was gone. As the coffin was lowered into the ground, Emily's hands shook. She wanted to cry loudly, to scream, to beg someone to stop this from happening. But no sound came out. Tears streamed silently down her face. Beside her stood Linda, dressed in black, her face stiff, eyes dry. Not a single tear fell. Once the service ended, people offered quick condolences and hurried away, eager to escape the rain and the sadness. Emily stayed behind, staring at the fresh dirt, whispering goodbye to the only person who had ever truly loved her. "Emily, come on," Linda snapped sharply. "We're leaving." The ride home was silent except for the sound of rain hitting the windshield. Emily clutched her father's old jacket in her lap, the one he used to wear every winter. It still smelled like him. She leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes, wishing this was all a bad dream. When they arrived at the house, Linda wasted no time. "Go to your room," she said coldly. "We need to talk later." Emily nodded and quietly walked upstairs. She sat on her bed, surrounded by her books, her drawings, the small stuffed bear her father had won for her at a fair. She waited. An hour later, Linda opened the door. "Pack your things," she said flatly. Emily looked up, confused. "Pack my things?" "Yes," Linda replied, crossing her arms. "You're not staying here anymore." The words didn't make sense. Emily felt her heart begin to race. "But this is my home. Daddy said your father is gone." Linda cut her off. "And this house is in my name now. I didn't sign up to raise someone else's child." Emily stood up slowly. "Where am I supposed to go?" Linda shrugged. "There's a shelter downtown. Or maybe you can find some distant relative. Not my problem." Tears filled Emily's eyes. "Please, I'll be good. I won't be any trouble. I can clean, I can help enough." Linda snapped. "You have 1 hour, take what you can carry." And with that, she walked out. Emily's world collapsed in that moment. She packed her clothes into an old backpack, added her school notebook, her father's jacket, and the stuffed bear. She looked around the room one last time, memorizing every detail, knowing she might never see it again. When she came downstairs, Linda was already waiting by the door, tapping her foot impatiently. "Here," Linda said, handing her a small envelope. "There's a little cash inside. Don't say I left you with nothing." Emily didn't respond. She stepped outside into the rain. The door closed behind her. Emily stood there for a moment, unsure if this was really happening. Then she began to walk. She didn't know where she was going. She just walked. Hours passed. The rain stopped, but the cold remained. Her feet hurt. Her stomach growled. She sat on a bench near a bus stop, hugging her backpack, trying not to cry. That was when a black luxury car slowly pulled up nearby. The door opened, and a tall man in an expensive coat stepped out. He looked around, then his eyes landed on Emily. He frowned slightly and walked toward her. "Are you all right, young lady?" he asked gently. Emily hesitated. Her father had taught her to be cautious with strangers, but something about the man's voice felt safe. "I'm fine," she lied quietly. The man studied her wet clothes, her red eyes, the way she clutched her bag, like it was her lifeline. "It doesn't look like you're fine," he said softly. "Where are your parents?" Emily's lip trembled. "My dad? He died today." The man's expression changed instantly. His confident posture softened, his eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry," he said sincerely. "What about your mother?" "She passed away years ago." A pause followed, And your guardian? Emily looked down at her shoes. My stepmother. She told me to leave. The man's jaw tightened. She kicked you out. On the day of your father's funeral? Emily nodded, tears finally spilling over. The man took a deep breath, clearly holding back anger. What's your name? Emily. Emily, he repeated. My name is Alexander. He reached into his pocket and handed her a clean handkerchief. Would you like something warm to eat? Emily hesitated, then nodded. Alexander opened the car door. Don't worry, he said gently. I won't hurt you. I promise. Something in his eyes reminded Emily of her father's kindness. She slowly got into the car. Inside, it was warm. It was too warm. Emily hadn't realized how cold she was until that moment. Alexander drove her to a nearby restaurant and ordered soup, bread, and hot chocolate. He watched silently as Emily ate, trying not to cry between spoonfuls. Do you have any relatives? He asked. Emily shook her head. It was just me and Dad. Alexander leaned back, deep in thought. He was a self-made millionaire, a man who owned companies, buildings, influence, but none of that mattered right now. What mattered was the little girl sitting across from him, abandoned by the only family she had left. Emily, he said finally, would you like to come stay with me for a while? Just until we figure things out. Her eyes widened. With you? Yes, he nodded. I live alone. I have a big house, but it's very quiet. Maybe too quiet. Emily didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, will you send me away too? Alexander's heart broke at that question. No, he said firmly. I won't. That night, Emily slept in a soft bed for the first time in days. Alexander gave her clean clothes, a warm meal, and a promise that she was safe. Over the weeks that followed, something incredible happened. Emily began to smile again. She laughed. She slept without nightmares. Alexander enrolled her in a good school, attended her meetings, helped with homework. He listened to her stories, her fears, her dreams. Slowly, he learned about her father, about the sacrifices Daniel had made, about how much he loved his daughter. One evening, Alexander made a phone call. Linda answered, annoyed. Who is this? This is Alexander Cross, he said calmly. You kicked a 9-year-old girl out of her home on the day of her father's funeral. There was silence. You should know, Alexander continued, that house legally belongs to Emily. Her father placed it in a trust. You have no right to it. Panic crept into Linda's voice. That's impossible. It's very possible, Alexander replied coldly. My lawyers will be in touch. Weeks later, Linda was forced to leave the house she thought she owned. Emily inherited what her father had worked his entire life to protect. But Emily didn't ask to go back. She chose to stay with Alexander. Years passed. Emily grew into a confident, kind young woman. Alexander officially adopted her, not because of money, not because of guilt, but because love had found its way into both of their hearts. On the anniversary of her father's death, Emily visited the cemetery. Alexander stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. Thank you, Emily whispered, looking at the grave. For everything, Alexander smiled softly. Your father would be proud of you. And in that quiet moment, Emily realized something important. Sometimes, losing everything is how you find what you were meant to have all along. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Kindness matters more than we think, and you never know when a small act can change a life forever.